Hello, friends. We are back and we are live. It is Oh for Dying Out Loud, your favorite podcast about death, dying, living, and everything in between with my beloved friend. Please introduce yourself to our
I'm Laura
listeners.
Shaw, your divine death doula.
I love that. And I am Angie Cat, and I am your magical life maven. So,
Yeah, very magical.
oh,
Mhm.
I'm creating some sort of magic. Yes. It is summer here, so I don't know what I'm creating, but we're working on it. So, what are we talking about tonight, Laura?
Yeah, so tonight I think we're going to tackle. So we had a really great uh, conversations, coffee and conversations with death this weekend, and some things kind of came up from that. So I think what we're going to focus on today is really signs from the people who have gone before us, signs from the people who we've recently lost, and just kind of let it flow from there.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I mean, that's
Mhm.
how the spirit world works anyway. I mean, why not? Just let it flow how it's gonna
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So,
So I shared this beautiful story, so I'll share it with the audience. So my grandmother, many people know this, I've said it a million times. I was with my grandmother when she actually took her last breath, and it was amazing and beautiful. I was extremely close to her, and I actually got to help fill some of the care duties while my parents were at work with her for the last year or so of her life. And she often would tell me this story about a plant. It's a flower. It's called a portulaca or a moss rose, is what people more commonly know it as. And she told me this beautiful story about when she was growing up in the middle of winter in very northern Iowa. A wheelbarrow had been turned over in the yard, and they went to remove they lived on a farm. They went to remove the wheelbarrow, and when they flipped it over, there was a portulaca blooming in the middle of winter, which these plants, they don't
right,
stay every year. I always forget,
right.
does that make them an annual? I think yes.
Yes. Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, so we used to I've always loved moss roses because she's always told me that story. So a few years ago, I lost my grandma more than 10 years ago now. And a few years ago, in the middle of winter, I always plant them every year. And in the middle of winter, in my front yard, if anyone is my neighbor watching this, you all know I'm that house. But there was a upside down, overturned kind of plastic container from some plants. And I was removing debris in my yard. And sure enough, middle of winter, and I had a portulaca blooming in my grass, and it instantly brought me back to my grandma, and I knew she was there
Yes.
uh, and with me. And so we started talking about reminders, things that remind
Yeah.
us, and how they're not just reminders.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to note in that story that you have never had those roses in your yard.
No, never, no,
Right.
never. And
Never.
in
You
this
didn't go out
house
and
in
buy them.
specific, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. If I've ever had them anywhere, they're always in a pot or a flower bed. But in this specific house, I haven't had them. As a matter of fact, this year I looked for them, and I found two dying ones at Menards that I didn't buy. So they're
Yeah.
hard for me to find. So I have not successfully purchased any. Hmm.
That's so interesting. I love that. Yes. And I think, I love these kinds of stories because everybody has some version of them.
Hmm.
And even if you think that you're not getting signs, they're probably there, but you may not be seeing them, and that's okay. But yeah, they're just such a great reminder that they're still with us. They're still thinking about us, still watching over us, protecting us, whatever. It's just their way of saying hello, And from what I've read and studied, what's interesting is that it can manifest in so many different ways, and it kind of depends because um, it takes a lot of effort and energy for them to appear, to move something, to manifest something in order for you to see it. And so if you do have a sign like that, just know that that's a pretty big deal because it took a lot of effort for them to do that, but it's magical nonetheless, and but if you don't see signs, I think that's the first thing I want to say is if you don't see signs right away, that doesn't mean that they're not there.
Right.
The sign could be your memory, right? The sign could be that, you just happen to come across a photograph and, of them and they're very, it triggers some really happy memories for you. It's that kind of thing. It can be just as subtle as that, as opposed to, I've had a wide variety of signs. And this is, I never used to believe in them. I mean, this was like, gosh, this was back in 2010.
Wow.
I was in this apartment and I think I may have told the story before, so stop me, but it's my favorite story. I'm in this apartment and I go into the kitchen and I go to flip on the light. It doesn't come on right away. And it's one of those, ballast lights, those halogen ballast lights or whatever. So I just thought, okay, there's a short or something, no big deal. After about 5 minutes, it comes on. Well, then this continues, only it's completely random. I'll turn it on the next time, it comes on right away. The next time I go to turn it on, I flip the switch, it could be 3 hours before it comes on. Then it comes on right away. Then it's 3 minutes, then it's 30 minutes, then it was just all over the place. This light was unreliable, could not figure out what it was. And I'm lazy. I didn't call my landlord. I was just like, there's something wrong with the light. I just don't feel like fixing it. So if the light didn't come on, I'd cook by the stove light, I'm just like, whatever. I don't have time for this. I was very busy. And anyway, so what was interesting is that this went on for quite some time. I ignored it. And then I had gone to, a friend of mine had invited me to go to a mediumship gallery. And at the time, I should note that I was a huge skeptic at this time. I'm like, mediumship, yeah, they probably are mining data and they're, we'll see. But I'm very open to the spiritual world. So I'm like, maybe it's possible. So I go to this show locally and there's this medium who actually lives in Des Moines. So I went and I was like, okay, this is very interesting. And they had a basket in the foyer and you could drop your name in there to be in a drawing for a free reading. So my friend drops my name in there and guess who wins? You. So I win this reading and I'm like, okay, well, this ought to be interesting. And of course it's by phone. There's no video. It's not face to face. He doesn't know me from Adam. And so we get on the phone, we start talking and he's like, okay, I've got a male energy. It's on your right side. So I think it's a father figure on your father's side of the family. I'm getting a grandfather figure and I'm getting the letter J. Does that mean anything to you? And I was like, well, it could be my Grandpa Joe. And he goes, yes, he's laughing because Grandpa Joe wants me to tell you that he loves playing with your kitchen lights. So I'm like, okay, now you've got my attention,
Right.
And what was interesting is that after that, every time the light would do its funky thing, I would be like, oh, hey, Grandpa, like it was a way for him to communicate. And then as mysteriously as it started, after a few weeks, just quit and the light started working perfectly. No, I didn't call anybody. I didn't tell anybody else about it other than, the story about my grandfather. So,
Right.
so that remains to this day that when he's near, he'll play with my laundry room lights, So
tracks,
it's
yeah.
not as often as it used to be, but like, there have been some other signs, like my grandmother, his wife, I was in a massage energy healing session once and smelled this overwhelming perfume of roses. And so at the end of the session, I said, wow, I don't know that essential oil that you used with roses. It was so lovely. And she's like, I didn't have any essential oils. I had no perfume. In fact, I'm allergic to scents. I'm very sensitive, so I don't have any in the house. So that dawned on me as like, oh, when I smell roses, that's my grandmother. So it's really fascinating how those things can show up, And everybody's going to be a little different, I think. I mean, that's been my experience, is that it could be something you hear. And by hear, I mean, it could be something that you actually perceive with your ears, or it's like you hear it in your head. Like, I'm clairaudient. So, I mean, in layman's terms, I suppose you could say that that means I hear dead people. But I
Yes.
hear messages, but it's not like I'm hearing a voice. It is like I'm hearing it in my head. That's the best way I can describe it. So people might hear things, they might see things. I'm not one of those people that sees things on a regular basis, other than like the cardinals. I think I may have mentioned that
Mhm.
earlier, in a previous conversation earlier in the week, that I've been feeling, some grief around my cat a little bit, and feeling like, oh, I just feel disconnected. And um, I've been in this place for a year and never seen cardinals in this area. And all of a sudden I've seen 3 or 4 in the backyard. So, they're popping up a little bit more often, and cardinals are a pretty universal sign of
Right.
someone who's lost, who has passed on. So yeah, there's some cool things that happen with those signs, but it's really, they're just coming in to check in with you. And it's just a good reminder that they're always there. They're always there. They're always a thought away. And even if you don't get a sign, they're still there.
Right. I definitely know, so for the sake of everyone out there, I definitely know that there can be great loss that you absolutely think will be the person to reach out to you. Like, I just absolutely